Text, a look inside Gateway Arch National Park, the founding of St. Louis with Ranger Carl. Ranger Carl stands in front of a museum panel.
Hello, I'm Ranger Carl. Welcome to Gateway Arch National Park. We're visiting the museum underneath the Gateway Arch today to talk about some of the objects and themes in our museum. One of the first galleries that you encounter when you visit our museum is the one featuring and talking about the founding of St. Louis. Now, St. Louis's history goes back over 250 years. St. Louis was founded in 1764. And over here on the board, on the wall, you can see the two founders of St. Louis, Pierre Laclede and his stepson, Auguste Chouteau.
Side-by-side portraits of Laclede and Chouteau.
These two men and about 20 French boatmen made their way up the Mississippi River from New Orleans. Their destination was going to be the confluence of the Missouri and Mississippi rivers. It was at that location that Pierre Laclede wanted to establish a business. Now, this group was traveling with a type of wooden vessel that would go on the river, both up and down the river. It was called a keelboat.
Several men on a flat-bottom keelboat, two using poles to move the boat downriver.
Pierre Laclede had hired about 20 French boatmen to move the boat up the river. This was done through a couple different methods. One way was to row the boat with oars. You could also push it with poles, and you could pull it with ropes in a method called cordelling. Now, all these things are being done along the edge of the river where the river is very shallow and the current's not very strong. It did take this group about 3 months to make the journey from New Orleans all the way up to the Missouri-Mississippi River confluence. Now, that's about 15 miles north of where we're standing right now. When that group made it to that location, they scouted out a location to establish Pierre Laclede's business. Unfortunately, they ran into some bad news and discovered that the area there where the rivers come together was a floodplain, meaning that it's a very low piece of land. When a river would rise, when it would flood, it would cover that land with water. Not a very good location to build anything. So they instead decided to come down the river to a spot where Gateway Arch National Park is today.
Several men along the river, one chopping down a tree.
Here at that time, along the Mississippi River, there was a 40-foot tall limestone bluff here along the river. You could build something on top of that bluff and be safe from flood waters. The business that Pierre Laclede wanted to establish here at this location was a fur trading post. Now, the way this fur trading post worked was the local Native Americans that lived here would bring animal skins to the fur trading post. Muskrat, river otter, fox, deer, and bison skins. And they were going to exchange them for things like rifles, gunpowder, axes, knives, bolts of cloth, wool blankets, metal trinkets, and jewelry. So this was a bartering system. There was no exchange of money. The most valuable pelt brought to the fur trading post was the pelt of the beaver, the largest rodent in North America.
Photos of brown beaver with small dark eyes.
At this time in our country's history and in world history, there was a big demand for a hat, a top hat made out of matted beaver hair.
A man wears a brown top hat with brim.
These hats were made for both men and women, and the style started over in Europe and later made its way to this part of the world. And the beaver hair was what was used to make into the felt, to make into the hats. Now, these hats were not made here in St. Louis, but they were made in hatting factories back east. But the raw materials came from places like St. Louis and the Great Lakes where there were other trading posts. So St. Louis's founding goes back over 250 years, starting right here on the Mississippi River in the same place that Gateway Arch National Park sits today.
Logo, NPS Arrowhead. Text, Gateway Arch National Park, St. Louis, Missouri, 2020.